No, I don't need any. 1 cup will do me.
1 cup will do you?
Yeah.
Okay. I have more than that. Does you, now, you have the kind with caffeine in it? So do I. I don't want that decaf.
What do you drink coffee for?
I don't, that's what I say. They're not going to change me on things like that. Never. Never.
Why?
I used to be a waitress.
Margarine.
I used to be a waitress. And that's all that kept us going was coffee. Many times we didn't have time to eat.
I know.
Coffee and we were raring to go again. Good stuff.
I know. See, I have to put the everything on automatic pilot when I do this. I'm a one-woman show.
That's
here.
okay.
And the technical and the interview.
Yes, if there's something wrong, it's your fault.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
That's a good
Be my
like
fault,
that.
it's your fault.
Yeah.
Okay, you take responsibility.
You know it. All right, so I guess I'm just gonna let the thing get warmed up here a little bit.
All right. That's why you're lighting a cigarette, to get it warmed up. Okay. Look at my duck there. He's curious as to what's going on. Look at him giving you the eye. What are you doing to my mother? He says. What are you doing? Doesn't it look just as if he was, huh?
I know it.
What are you doing over there?
Look at all sorts of unique things in there. All these signs. And I want to ask you about that sign right up there. You told me that your father made that sign. Did he make it out of wrought iron? How is that?
No, his part is wood. The other part is metal. The part with the Bayfield shop on is hand-carved wood.
Okay.
The other part would have to be made by a blacksmith, probably.
Okay. All the questions that I ask you, I'm going to need, like, complete trains of thought. Like, my father made that sign, and it's an original, whatever, you know what I mean? I have to have, anything I put on videotape has to be, like, one complete thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you about the sign. You're going to tell me, if you could tell me a little bit about how your father made that sign.
Well, I don't know exactly when it was made, but it must have been made in his early years when he had the shop here. But the main part of the sign would be made out of wood, which was hand-carved. The letters would be hand-carved. And it was probably designed by Henry Turner Bailey. Henry Turner Bailey was married to a Litchfield, probably a cousin of my father's, and he was a professor of art. So he and my father started the shop together, without a doubt. He designed the sign, and the metal part would have been made by a blacksmith, probably. And it's been up there for many years. I just had it painted a few years ago.
And what if there's a tree on the top?
The tree was, Henry Turner Bailey had a pine tree that was his favorite pine, sort of special. And that was sort of a logo. It was even a logo on my father's brochures, I noticed. So it meant something to him. He called it Tree of Life.
That's neat. Yeah, it's a beautiful sign.
Yes, it is. Not another one like it. No, it's unique. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Lawrence Litchfield. Who was Lawrence Litchfield?
Well, Lawrence Litchfield was the beginning of our ancestry. He came here from England in the early 1630s. I can't tell you the exact date, the early 1630s. And I believe he came over on a boat named the Griffin, which went back and forth several times to England and brought several different groups over. I understand he came into Barnstable and worked his way up to Scituate, which would be walking, and stayed in Scituate. And I believe he's buried in the Meeting House Cemetery up there. He was the beginning of our family tree.
Yep, and he had 4 children?
He had 4 children, and their names were Experience, Remembrance, Dependence, and Josiah. Experience was male, and he worked at the North River shipyard building boats, and he fell overboard with a timber and left his estate to his two sisters, Remembrance and Dependence. That's how I knew what sex they were. So Josiah really was the one, Lawrence and Josiah, that started the family here.
And then there were other names in the family, but that you don't usually hear names like that anymore, and they were ancestors of yours, like...
Oh yes, there was, yes. You're talking about Orange. Well, in England there was what they called Orangemen, and I suppose he was named for that. And what other names did you?
Webster, I think, was another one.
Webster was my grandfather. Orange was my great-grandfather. My father was Jessie Palmley Litchfield, the owner of the shop here. And my mother was Effie Lawrence Litchfield, which she had the middle name of her ancestor. They used to name women with men's names for their middle names years ago. Because I had an aunt, Cora James Litchfield, my mother's sister.
Right.
Yeah. And her father was David Brigham Litchfield. She was a Litchfield and married my father that was a Litchfield, and now I have a daughter married to a Litchfield.
Now you look back on the family tree just to make sure.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, because they say if your blood is too close, you may be crazy. So I wanted to see how crazy I was, if I could really act crazy, or if I wanted to act normal. So I followed the tree back and found out that they had the same parents in 1690. And I said, oh dear, just don't lose your sense of humor, but act a little bit normal.
And your father, Jesse, what did he do?
My father, in his 20s, he was born in 1873. In 1893, he was born talented, let's say. He was born talented and artistically, and he wanted to be a wood carver, so he went to Arlington and lived with my mother, and he worked with Irvin and Casson. Irvin and Casson were Germans that came over here years ago, and they had a wood carving shop in Cambridge. And he apprenticed with them until around 1903 or 4, which was, everything was done by hand. Then the machines came in. He lost his job to a machine. And so he and my grandfather, Jessie and Webster, built the shop here, just the part with the gable roof, in around 1904. Because the first bookkeeping I found was 1905, so I assume the shop was built in 1904.
And he stayed in the shop and took care of it until how long?
He worked in this shop until he was 86 years old. And in fact, he was shingling a roof when we had to take him to the hospital. He was up shingling the gable roof, which I had to finish. Oh yes, I did a lot of shingling on these buildings. I shingled a lot of these roofs.
Wow.
Love it.
Now you grew up, you told me a little bit about the Litchfields in town. How there were many Litchfields in the past.
Yes, there were.
I just want to back up a little bit because I forgot about that part. About, there were a lot of Litchfields. Can you tell me a little bit about how, you said something about the Litchfields and how they all had about 50 acres of land, and where they were situated. Where was the Litchfield family?
Most of the Litchfields were situated from Egypt. In Egypt, North Scituate, and the West End. There maybe were one or two in the Scituate Harbor area, but they were most up this end. And they all had, most all of them had about 50 acres. And they were self-sufficient, They had cows, and they had their horse, and they had chickens and hogs, and which supplied them all their dairy products and their wood in the winter. They had pasture land and woodland, and in the winter when it was frozen over is when they'd go and get their wood in the swamp, cut down their wood and bring it in and cut it all up. They were very self-sufficient. They did everything for themselves, and by hand. Everything was done by hand.
Right. And you were telling me a little bit about the territorial part of it, how kind of the Litchfields were considered the forgotten family of the town.
That's right. They never mentioned Litchfields in this town, hardly ever. It was always the other names, which I'm not going to mention right now. But we were the forgotten families up until 1980s, really. In fact, our genealogy has just been done and put at the Historical Society just this year. And yes, Litchfields, I guess they thought we were nothing. But we have proven to be different. We've proven to be self-sufficient, most of us, earning our own and so forth.
The businesses in town? Like
businesses and farms and many different, yes. Mm-hmm.
And so most of the Litchfields were in the West End and North Situate?
Mm-hmm. Very few in the harbor. I just saw an old map of Situate Harbor, and I could only find one Litchfield on it. Many other prominent names, but only one Litchfield.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
In the harbor?
On the Situate Harbor map.
Huh.
An early one.
Yeah.
That was just given to me.
Huh.
Most of the Litchfields were from Egypt up.
Egypt.
Well, Egypt up to West End, North Situate.
Now, William Hubbard?
William Hubbard Litchfield was my great uncle, my mother's uncle.
And lived on Grove Street, and that's where you grew up.
That's where my mother and father lived, on Grove Street. That's where I was born and grew up. Mm-hmm. And he used to travel back and forth here with a horse and wagon to his shop every day with no lights. He worked from 1904 to 1925 with no lights, from dawn to dark.
Wood carving.
Wood carver. His first engine, his first motor, was a gasoline-powered motor before he had electricity. And there was a big rod in the shop where the belts could come off from onto different machines. But that was not until, well, probably in the 20s before he got electricity. That gasoline-powered motor I sold to a person, and to prove that things were made to last years ago, the man I sold it to got the old motor rolling, came in and stopped me, came in and told me that it was going fine.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh. So when did you enter into all this business of antiques?
My father passed away in 1961, and then I took the shop over, mostly to see if I could support it through the business here. And either that or I'd have to go out to work. So I decided to give it a try. And I tried, and was as green as grass when I started. But the grass seemed to grow taller and looked more interesting as time went on, and got flowers in it and so forth. So, because I'm avid to learn, and I learn about what I sell. So I can tell my customers honestly what they're buying.
So you are one of the role models for women. You are a career woman.
Entrepreneur.
An entrepreneur.
That's a word I never heard until I'm one of those. Never heard it before. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I must tell people. I'm an entrepreneur.
Did you ever marry, Di?
Do we have to go into that?
No, I was just curious. I don't have to put this on TV, but I was just wondering.
Yes, I was married twice and divorced twice. 13's my lucky number. Married 13 years, divorced 13 years.
Huh.
And I had a number of 13 when I was worked in different places. 13's my lucky number. I look forward to 13 coming along. Usually does something for me good.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Is it because you made, this is just for my interest only, really. Is
Yeah.
it because, did you find yourself to be more of a career, business-oriented person than to be a housewife?
I never cared for housework. Housework to me is very monotonous. It's the same thing over and over and over and over. I hope when I go to heaven I don't have to do housework. No, I have a mind that is creative, and I love to decorate, and I didn't have a chance to. I would like to have been an artist, but I didn't have the chance. But I saw that my daughter went to art school because she had the talents too. Talents are in the family. I found in a little notebook, I found a notebook of my grandfather's, and he had drawn little birds and butterflies and flowers and wrote about them in pen and ink and then colored them. Beautiful, beautiful, really.
Do you have some of those here?
Yeah, I've got the little booklet somewhere in the house. And then my father, I've got beautiful drawings of his, because carving is precision work. You have to scale it out first before, so you know exactly what you're going to do, so it'll be in proportion and everything.
Yeah.
I've got some beautiful drawings of his. They should be framed. He was really an artist, and he never went to art school. Never went to art school.
Self-made man.
Then my daughter. I never had the chance, so I do it in decorating, but my daughter, she won 2 scholarships. Polly Hardwick, Litchfield, and she went to the Museum of Fine Arts, but she didn't complete because she got married to Thorndike Litchfield, of all people. So we're not going to lose the name. But you lose the name through boys. My mother had 2 boys. One was a stillborn, and my brother Myron passed away at 17. They lost their boys. My daughter had 3 girls.
Yeah.
So you lose the name through having girls, but girls are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they Wendy. You bet your life.
And now girls are keeping their own names.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And girls are getting to be, I don't want to see them exactly equal with men, but almost.
Really?
Let's have a hair's difference.
A hair's different.
Yes, so we won't lose the gentlemen that like to honor and do things for women, polite things.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you,
I would agree that that's nice. I
yes.
also agree that we should be equal now, too.
Well, maybe a hair's difference,
Yeah.
just a hair. I mean, we don't want to be, no, we don't want to be exactly like men. If we were, we'd be equipped like men. That's a thought.
That's a thought.
And we're not equipped like men. We're built entirely different.
That's right.
So we have a brain just as good, and some of the women use it better than the men do. Right. So what are we doing now?
I don't know. We've gotten off on all different topics.
I know.
That's okay. It'll all fit in.
Okay.
Let's see.
Who has more fun than people?
Oh,
We used to be monkeys until we got a big million population.
I know.
Used to be monkeys, but people, not that way anymore.
Yeah. Oh, right out here. Oh, you tell me when your father first started this place, and you were going to tell me a little bit about the property.
Oh, this
Like
property.
where it's situated in the road that it's on.
This property, all of this property along here originally belonged to the Baptist Church. Baptist Church is one of the older churches in town. And he bought it piece by piece. The first piece he bought was where the shop is located. Because years ago, people didn't borrow money to go into business. They used what they had. When they made enough to add to it, then they used their own money and bought a little more. So we bought this property probably in 3 or 4 pieces until there's almost an acre here now. And the little houses were moved in sometime in the early 1900s, which he used to rent the little houses for more income, with no utilities, none. They brought their water from a well, they had lamps, they had stoves, and there was probably about 6 or 7 little outbuildings on the property, and they all would have a little woodshed for their wood, and life was very simple then.
You mentioned that he rented to Cape Verdeans.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. There was several Cape Verdes in Scituate. Some are still here, and some have gone into business. Roderick's, I think, was one of them. He's a Cape Verde. He's in the sanitary pumping business now. And they used to ride bicycles to work. They did any kind of work, like landscaping or working in a garden, many different.
And they rented here?
And they rented here, yep. Sometimes 2 or 3 would live in one house, sometimes 1. And he did cater to them. They were good to him, and he was good to them.
So that brought in a little bit of an income?
That brought in a little bit of an income to help him with his business. Because his business wasn't always flourishing. When there wasn't any wood carving or furniture to be made, at the time of the Proving Grounds, World War I, he was probably out carpentering, building buildings and houses, because he was a carpenter also.
Let's see, what else can I ask you about the site itself?
I don't know.
The route. You told me about 3A and this.
Oh, well, when my father built the shop, he was on the main road between Boston and Plymouth, which they always said it was the Indian Trail between Boston and Plymouth. And 3A didn't go through until 1933. So he was on the main road for some time. What else did I say about that? I don't remember.
No, you just told me it was the old Indian Trail. Yep. Can we take a tour of your
well, I don't know why not. I'm not going to carry you. If you're able to walk around, we'll go.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Sure. Sit
Now,
right there just for a second.
Now you're going to move all the stuff.
What a beautiful picture.
How'd I do?
Wonderful. I'm just wondering, before I stop the tape, is there anything else that I should ask you about?
I don't know.
About the signs or about...
Oh, yes. Yes, he made...
No, start off with my father made, because we don't know who he
that's
is
right.
unless you...
My father made all of the hand-carved signs in the 1920s, I believe it was, for Scituate. These are road signs. And Plymouth County. And he also made the pattern to the shield signs that were between the abounding towns. He made the pattern, and they were cast in bronze. There was one between Scituate, Cohasset. There were 2 between Scituate, Cohasset, one on Country Way and one on Border Street. There was one between Marshfield and Scituate down near the North River, and one between Norwell and Scituate on 123. The Marshfield and Norwell signs, which were made in bronze, have been stolen, missing, have been for years. I wouldn't have known about the other Scituate sign, Scituate and Cohasset, if a friend of mine, Noel Ripley, hadn't come in yesterday, and he's with the Cohasset Historical Society, and he told me about the one that was on Border Street that they have, that Cohasset has. Okay. Now, there is nothing telling on these signs or posts that my father made the pattern of. And I wish the Historical Society would see that Jessie P. Litchfield somehow was applied to that sign or post. I think it would be great.
To let people know that
Yes,
he was
yes, because
one of the
after I'm
original.
gone, who's going to know?
That's right. That's right. But he's one of the original sign makers of this.
Yes, he is.
county.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Now, are there, besides the sign that's on the front of the building, are there any other signs on the property that he did?
Oh, yes, yes. I've tried to collect as many as I could. There was one down in the Red Coach Grill in Middleborough, Kings Highway to Middleborough. And my daughter and her husband went down there one time to eat, and they walked in. The whole lounge was decorated with his signs. The whole lounge. They had used it as a pattern, decorated the whole lounge with it. So she asked him where they got the sign, and he said he didn't know. She said, "Will you find out? Will you please call me?" So she got a telephone call one day and said she knew that it was her grandfather, and got a telephone call and said, "I found out where the sign came from." And she said, "Where?" "An antique shop." Well, she said, "Now I'm going to tell you, my grandfather made that sign, and my mother has been trying to get as many back as she possibly could. They mean a lot to her. Never met the man in my life, but I had worked for the Red Coach Grill in Hingham. He gave my daughter the sign to present to me for a Christmas present that Christmas. So I have the Kings Highway to Plymouth now in my porch."
You got that back.
Yeah.
You didn't lose it.
No, I got that one back.
Return to the homestead.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Mm-hmm.
much.
Then my father made a sign for my grandmother. This is one that he signed. I can tell you why. My grandmother owned the breakers down to Minot, my father's mother. It's still there. The breakers are still there. And he made her a hand-carved, beautiful hand-carved sign. And I can hear her now. Her name was Sarah, Grandma Sarah. And she'd say, because he never signed anything, "You sign that, Jessie. You put your name on that, Jessie." So he's got J.P. Litchfield on it. It's the only thing I've got. I had a violin that he made that he had signed, but it was stolen when I was broken into. And I took lessons on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you play the violin?
I never was meant to be a violinist,
Yeah.
but you know, my sister took piano lessons, and so I took violin lessons.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Did you take any music lessons?
No, but I learned how to play guitar a little bit.
Yeah.
And I diddle on the piano a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, most
Yeah.
people, their parents encourage them to,
Yeah.
because music is always meant.
Yeah.
But I never was meant to be a violin. You should be able to hold your violin up under your chin, let your hand go. Mine would fall on the floor if I tried to do that. But I took lessons from Annie Waldo Litchfield. She was a truant officer in Scituate.
When?
Oh, way back in the when we had truant officers. I don't think we have them now, do we?
Yeah, we don't.
Do we? Oh, she used to ride around on a bicycle and chase the kids. Annie Waldo Litchfield. She was a great violinist.
Ah.
Yes, yeah.
Ah.
And see, her husband, Waldo, was some cousin to my father. Annie Waldo. She had red hair and a great big braided pug on the back of her head and riding a bicycle to get the kids back to school. Yeah.
Are there any other Litchfields that stand out in your mind that did things or had businesses in town or part of your family?
I can't think of any, really. Ray Litchfield had a automobile shop up there in the West End. There was a Litchfield that had a grocery store, but I don't know what Litchfield he was. I have a calendar from the grocery store, and I don't know exactly where it was. I think it was maybe down at Greenbush somewhere. But there was some ministers, there was some lawyers and ministers, and William Hubbard was a selectman in Scituate in the late 1800s, and I have town reports that were probably no more than 25 or 30 pages years ago, and he has them all stapled together, sewed together, really, so that when he went to meeting, he could refer to the year before of what went on, you know. I have those. Yeah, he was a selectman for a while.
Do you have any other artifacts of Scituate that might be interesting that people don't know you have?
Artifacts?
Or, you know, just little trinkets of things that might have... We'll walk around. Maybe you'll refresh your memory on. Do you know any old stories of Scituate?
Well, I have a picture of Fred Graves' stables that I loaned to the for the 350th anniversary. This is when the trains were on, late 1800s, early 1900s, so when they had horses, and he used to go to the train to pick up the people to drive them where they wanted to go. I have that picture, and I had a picture of, now this isn't too long ago, I've forgotten how long ago it was, but Eben Page's Ford garage that was on the corner of Allen and Front Street, which is interesting. It's back when the cars in it looked pretty old. They looked like 1930s, 1940s, along there.
You said you had some documents or some things, some letters or documents from, was it a senator or somebody? Somebody who was running for
when Representative Sparrow, I can't remember the date, it's on the picture. When Representative Ernest Sparrow was running for a representative, he was from Norwell. He came, of course, Norwell was South Scituate, you know that. Norwell was South Scituate. And he came to Scituate, and he got all Scituate signers for his nomination papers, Litchfields. He got 80 Litchfields. The original's in the State House, and I have a copy of that. Yeah.
Is that what got him in?
Of course it did. He won. Absolutely. Sure. Litchfields got him in. Oh, he was a very nice, intelligent man, anyway. Yeah.
As I'm just sitting here, just thinking if there's other things that.
I don't know. I've gone over it so many times now. I don't know what I've said and what I haven't said.
I know. That's what I mean. Sometimes.
Well, I have the whole Litchfield genealogy from Lawrence Litchfield right up to both of my grandfathers are on the chart. I have that, and I also have a. It's very difficult to read now, but a written one that somebody wrote years ago.
A
handwritten one.
I wonder who in the family did. It must have been one of the Litchfields that did it.
Probably.
Yeah.
There was a Willard Litchfield that started to write the genealogy of Scituate. I don't remember when, but my mother bought each volume that he did, and I think there was 5 volumes. And I said to my mother, there should be more, shouldn't they? And she said, yes, but she said Willard was an alcoholic, and he never finished it. He got to drinking, and he never finished it. That was his story, and she never talked about anybody.
Right.
But I guess she wanted to tell me the truth on that one.
Yeah. Well, I think what we should do is look at some of the things. Check out some of the.
You said that before. Remember? This. Okay. This.
Yep.
You mean it now?
I mean it now.
Okay.
Yep. You want to plug your shop?
You want to plug my shop?
Plug your shop.
Where are you going to go?
Huh?
Where are you going to go?
No.
What do you mean plug my shop?
No, what I meant was, you want to give an advertisement for your shop? Come on down. I'm not kidding. This is going on TV.
Well, yes.
Something unique about your store.
Yeah, yes, there is something unique about my store. I think I carry a bigger variety than any shop around, and I welcome people to browse with no obligation whatsoever. just come in and enjoy yourself and look around. It's good therapy. You can forget about all your troubles as you look at all these early things that were well made with pride. And I also have collectibles from 1930s also, and companies that have gone out of business, which are collectibles also. Because an antique has to be 100 years old. And there's really not enough to go around everybody today, but they're collecting the later things. No, I welcome anyone. I have a lovely museum dollhouse that they can see, and they can see, I have a glass case set up with my father's wood carvings. And I'm here every day, 11 to 5, and I love people, make friends with most of my customers. I welcome them in.
And you've had lots of different people that have come from all over.
I have had people this year from 30 states and 4 foreign countries. A lot of them are repeats every time they're in this area. I have a gentleman that is from California that every time he is here twice a year, and he collects Heisey for his wife, and he comes to see me. He was here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he says, see you in 6 months. And he comes down and buys Heisey for him. He's bought a lot of wonderful pieces. He won't buy it unless it's marked, and I don't blame him.
What is that again that he
Heisey. Heisey glass. Heisey. It's in a diamond with an H. It should be marked with a diamond and an H. There were a lot of unmarked pieces, but you should be a connoisseur to know the ones that they made that weren't marked.
Right. And you've been in the antique business for how long?
This is my 24th year, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work, and people come in and see everything set up, and they say, oh, how nice. It's a lot of hard work. Furniture in and out of the wagons, furniture to be cleaned up, dishes to be washed, and brass and copper to be polished, and it's really, if you want a nice shop, there's a lot of work to it, and I like to display my things in the proper manner.
Yeah, and you've done a nice job at it too, from what I've seen when I've come in.
Yeah, yes, I showed you the showroom, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my pride and joy. That's my pride. I had that room put on. And I have a gentleman that does all my stripping and refinishing by hand. Never put in a vat of acid. That should never be done. There's a lot of shops that do it, but they will not necessarily tell you they do it. I'm proud in having a retired carpenter, Mario Bungazone, that works for me. And he's the gentleman that put my room on, my showroom, in 1969. And he does marvelous precision work, or I wouldn't have him.
Right.
This is how I try to tell the young people, because some shops, you know, they do it the easy way, and they can do it cheaper. They can sell their items cheaper, because handwork is more valuable, as you know. That came in, that Duncan, when my father was in business, and he said, don't ever put a piece of wood in acid. Wood, metal you can. Wood is a living thing. It has pores, it breathes, and it closes the pores, it raises the grain, and if it's glued together, sometime you're going to have a catastrophe. It's going to fall apart.
How did you get interested in this whole thing?
I was always interested in having a shop. One time my father let me have a little end of it, to have a corner of it, to have a shop, which I had like buttons and any little old collectible thing. Years and years ago, he let me have a corner of it. And I always wanted one, but then when it really happened that I could have one, I mean, I had to give it a lot of thought, really, to, I had to have a lot of confidence in myself to think that I could do it and try. But my mother always said, never say can't, but I'll try. And I've gone by that many times. I'm very thankful they brought me up to be a very independent thinker and not depend on other people, or I don't think I could do it. But I am very
You seem
independent.
like a very independent person.
Huh?
You seem like a very
Yes, I am. And I want to be. I want to make my own decisions. Sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it'll take me weeks to think something over so I won't do it the wrong way. But if I make a mistake after thinking, it's my fault and nobody else's. I can't blame it on anybody else. Like sometimes I'd like to. If I make a but the longer you think about something, the better off it is, because you go through many angles of the way to do things, and all of a sudden it appears, the right way appears, by thinking of many different angles. Haven't you found it that way? Yeah. No, I really love people. That's one reason I enjoy the shop, because it is very sociable for me. My friends come in and we just sit and talk. They don't have to buy anything to come in and see me, and I have many friends that do that, which is nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Sit right there. I'm just going to take a look to make sure that you weren't all in frame.